Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. And today I'm talking about things women will notice that will make them attracted to you. So I'm going to get into the first point, and that is emotional stability, right? Not so much financial stability, but emotional stability. And what this means is that you are calm, that you don't fly off the handles too much, like you don't get too emotional about things. It doesn't mean that you never get sad or you never get angry. It just means that when you do, you know how to control yourself, right? So you know what to do basically to make yourself feel better. So if you're angry, then you're not going to take it out on other people. You're not going to go into like a flying rage and start punching the walls, because that kind of thing will scare a woman, right? And it's the same with if you become too emotional and you just break down, you know, that will also kind of make a woman feel a bit, whoa, what's going on here, right? So if you want to, and of course, obviously there are going to be times in your life where you may start, like, let's say, like crying uncontrollably, like if something bad happens, like let's say your parents die, or one of your parents die, or your dog dies, whatever it may be, right? The human life is filled with tragedy, so obviously there are going to be times when you're really, really upset. But the point is that you don't let it go too far. You don't fly off the handles. In a way, you're kind of like a pillar of strength in her life. And if she can see that you are really stable emotionally, that you're really calm and you're cool and you're collected, and you're not erratic in that sort of way, then she's going to notice that about you. And you know, women will notice these sorts of things about people who they work with, who they go to school with, who they hang out with, perhaps through mutual friends. And also with someone that they go on a date with. Emotional stability is a huge one, and it's just the ability to stay calm in kind of turbulent situations, and in a way you kind of like not changing. Like I've spoken about this before recently, but one of the biggest compliments that I see about women who are really happy in their marriages is what they say about their husband is, oh yeah, he's like my rock, right? And if you think about a rock, right, it's kind of unchanging. It doesn't really move around, right? If you think of like a big rock, right, you can lean on it. It's stable. It's steady. You know, that's kind of like what you need to emulate. You need to emulate the rock, you know, in that kind of like, but mentally, right? It doesn't mean that you're just sitting there doing nothing like a rock, although sometimes it does really feel good to do that kind of stuff. But you know, it just means like emotionally you are a rock. So that means she can lean on you. It means that she can trust you for stability, emotional stability. Because let's be honest, generally women are a lot more emotional than men, across the board. Of course, that's, you know, not for every individual. Every individual is unique and different. But most of the time, you know, women are a lot more emotional than men, okay? So therefore, women are attracted to men who are a lot more stable, emotionally stable than they are, to help balance them out, right? So that's why, you know, women say to me, you know, oh, the reason I love my husband so much is, one of the reasons I love him is because he's like a rock. He's like my rock. So that means when she's upset, she can go to her husband or her boyfriend, whatever it may be, for comfort and reassurance, right? And you see this with little girls and their daddies, you know, and I was a daddy's girl when I was little. And whenever I was scared, whenever I was upset, I would go to my dad, right? It's just something that women do. We go to the men in our lives when we are scared and upset and things like that. And obviously, you know, something that I still do now with my dad. Like I remember when my pet bird Frank was still alive, he got out of his cage one day and he was panicking, and so I rang my dad because I didn't know what to do, and I felt scared too. I was like, oh my god, I don't know what to do with Frank right now. And then he calmed me down, right? It's just something that little girls tend to do with their dads. Now, of course, little girls grow up to be women, and then they seek that kind of stability then from their husbands. You know, I don't know why. It's just one of those things, right? Maybe it's like a weird Freudian thing, but it's something that women do, okay? They want a man who is stable, who is their rock. That's just generally what I've seen across the board with women who are happy in their marriages. They feel like the man that they're with is like their rock. So having emotional stability and being emotionally stable and kind of exuding that energy is what's going to make a woman notice you and feel attracted to you, especially if she is one of these women that tends to be more emotional than men. Now, of course, that's, like I said, that's not always the case. Every individual is different. There are women out there that have like more of a stoic sort of still emotional center, and there are men out there that have a more of an emotional center that can be more emotional, or at least on par with some women in the world when it comes to their emotionalness. But then those kinds of men are probably seeking a woman who is more stoic, who is more still, who can be their rock, and it kind of balances out, because in order for there to be attraction, there needs to be polarity, right? So that's why you can see in almost every single relationships, whether they're heterosexual relationships, whether they're gay lesbian relationships, there's usually one that's more masculine. There's usually one that is more like the rock. You know, not the rock as in the Rock Johnson, but more like the rock of the relationship, who's more emotionally stable, right? And there's the other one who tends to be a little bit more emotional, who tends to be a bit more feminine, who tends to be a bit more nurturing, right? And without that polarity, the relationship doesn't work, which is why you never see two super feminine people together, and why you see never, two masculine people together. Now, of course, they may look masculine. Let's say like the typical like butch lesbian couple, both of them may look really masculine. They may both have like really short hair and wear men clothes. But if you knew them as a couple and how their dynamics are, you'll be able to see that there's one that's a lot more emotional than the other, and that's what keeps the sexual polarity in check, and that's how the attraction stays. If you want there to be attraction, then there has to be polarity. So if you're dealing with a feminine woman, then you need to be more masculine, and you need to be more emotionally stable. That's just how it is, okay? So another thing that a woman will notice about you is if you don't take yourself too seriously. Because there are a lot of men out there that I've seen, not a lot of men, but there's men that I've definitely seen that sometimes do take themselves way too seriously, and they get really angry if someone, like, let's say, like, I don't know, like, tries to take a hit on their ego, and they get really defensive and angry about it, as opposed to those other guys that can really laugh it off and don't take themselves too seriously. So I'm a huge PewDiePie fan, and I've been watching him for years. I'm a huge fan of PewDiePie, and I think he's when I think of like someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously, I think of him. Like he's really funny, but he's also also quite a masculine guy. And his marriage with his wife Marzia is like really successful. They've been together for ages. You can tell that she's really happy. You can tell that she's really in love with him, and you can see that by their dynamic. Like if you watch videos of Felix and Marzia together, you'll be able to see how that dynamic works, how he's like really funny, doesn't take himself too seriously, and she's just there giggling, having a great time, and you can tell that the pair of them really love each other, and you can tell that the sexual polarity is there, right? So that's a good sort of like case study. If you prefer to look on YouTube, just look up videos with PewDiePie and Marzia, and you'll be able to see that dynamic. And he's a guy who doesn't take himself too seriously, and you can tell that she loves that about him. He has a great sense of humor. So don't take yourself too seriously, and don't just don't take yourself too seriously, basically. So another thing that a woman will notice about you is if you have leadership qualities. Now this means in dating, for example, that when you're talking to a girl, you ask her out and you set up like if she agrees obviously to go out with you, you set up the time and the place to go there. You're not like always asking what she wants to do, like, oh, which restaurant would you like to go to, what time would you like to meet. You make those plans yourself. Other leadership qualities is just being decisive, not looking for other people for guidance, trusting your own intuition, trusting your own initiative. So like in a work situation, you're not always going to everyone like, oh, what should I do next? What should I do next? Like just follow your instinct on what you should do, unless asking is something that you absolutely have to do. But other than that, just trust your own instincts, become more of a leader. And one of the best ways to describe a leader is someone who goes first. So in a situation like that, it could be in a dating sort of dynamic, it would be something like the man asks the woman out first, or something like that. That's like a leadership. Let's get the ball rolling on things. In my own relationship, I've used this example not that long ago. I think it was in the long distance relationship video I made recently. And that is, you know, when me and my wife were getting married and we were thinking about, you know, we'd been engaged for a little bit. We'd been engaged for about under a year. And I started to look up venues, and I was like, oh, what do you think of this venue? What do you think of that venue? And when I did that, that was me going first. Like, I'm looking up venues, I'm trying to move this thing along. And then when all I did was do that simple thing. And then suddenly my now wife, my fiance then, started to take, started to do loads on the marriage thing, because I started the ball rolling by like, hey, let's look at these venues. And then she started to do loads. She was looking at wedding dresses, she was looking at rings, things like that. She was looking at sort of like the colors that we wanted to use for our wedding. You know, she started doing loads, all because I just did that first initial step with looking at venues, right? So be the leader, go first. Start, if you want something to be happening, like if you want to start dating a girl, then you be the one to ask her out, because first of all, it was your idea. Don't be waiting around, waiting for her to make the first move. Because if you're doing that and she's a very feminine woman, then you're also acting very feminine and indecisive in that moment. So you need to be more of a leader and to go for things that you want. And that's essentially what a leader does. Of course, there are other little nuances about that. You know, it depends on the situation. Like, obviously, a leader in like the military wouldn't be doing things like that necessarily, but they may do sometimes. So they're obviously little different things. But when it comes to this is what a leader does when it comes to romantic relationships. Also, having your own opinions that you stick to. So this is something that I see a lot of guys going wrong with, and lesbians as well. Is, you have your own opinions about things. It could be a political opinion, it could be a religious opinion, it could be quite a controversial opinion that you may have, right? But you got to stick to it. You can't just be like, oh, no, I better not say that, otherwise she's going to get really annoyed at me, she might not like me anymore. No, if you have an opinion about something and you really believe it, you got to stick to it. Don't just change it because you're going to be worried that you hurt the girl on your date's feelings or something like that. If it's something you believe in and she's asking about it, then you got to be truthful about it, because she's going to be able to tell by your voice if you actually believe in what you're saying. Okay, so have your own opinions, even if they're controversial, right? It doesn't mean that you go around spouting out all of your opinions like unsolicitedly, right? But if someone asks you about your opinion on something, give it honestly and openly. And if they don't agree with it, then be like, well, sorry, that's just my opinion, that's just what I think. If you don't like it, then you know where to go, right? And that's away, basically, right? So have your own opinions, right? Stick to them. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is your posture and your body language. So this is the next thing that this is the last thing I want to go into about what a woman will notice about you, right? So if you're kind of like slouched over and you kind of got your arms crossed and you're looking down, she's going to see that as unconfident, right? She's going to see that as someone who doesn't believe in themselves, who's probably, and also not that very attractive. So all you need to do is quite simple. When you're standing up, just stand up straight with your shoulders back. You don't have to be puffed out too much. Just stand up tall with your shoulders back. And when you're sitting down, lean back, right? Lean back in your seat. So when you're on a date, lean back in your seat, right? And don't be like leaning over too much. Don't be crossing your hand. Don't be looking down. Don't be like kind of down like that. Just sit with your shoulders back. And if you're sitting, keep it sit back, okay? Like you're relaxed, like you're at home watching TV, right? Just be relaxed. And like I said, when you're standing, just all you have to do is just have your shoulders back, right? And stand up straight, okay? And that will give you a better posture than probably half the people that you may be around, the other guys that may be around you, because not a lot of people stand that way. A lot of people are like all kind of like cowering away, and because everyone seems to be so insecure recently, right? So sort out your posture, and if you're having problems with your posture, then you may need to go and see a chiropractor. Like, for example, you might think, oh yeah, but I'm always slouched over, I can't help it, it's just the way that my back is. Then go and seek out a chiropractor, sort out your back, and things like that. So those are that's my advice on what things that women will notice about you and will make them more attracted to you. I hope this video has helped you. I hope you found it informative. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.